also have come to love and respect, and someone with a proven record of leadership, someone who can take her news to the streets and make things happen. Hey, listen, y'all, we're on We Act Radio, and this is a live taping. You have to be quiet so that people can hear us when we're talking about the issues. I love y'all. But let's make it happen, okay? And let's bring Ms. Sherelle Hessell-Gordon to the stage. She is the Executive Director of the DC Rape Crisis Center. Let's welcome her. If you could just talk to me about your almost 2 decades of service, in terms of just rape culture in general, you know, what have you seen and what have you learned about the prevalence of this issue, you know? And that's a pretty broad question, but I'm really hoping that, you know, you could just give me 1 or 2 points just about the culture in general, because we see it in the news all the time, you know. Unfortunately, it's a very unfortunate thing. You have a big job on your hands, you know. So
I think what prompted me is the angst, right? And the ability to want to serve. I've been gifted with that all my life, and so I always have tried to find a way to create spaces and places for me to serve, but it didn't ever seem right. So I went from Florida, I went from California, I went from Colorado, I went from DC, trying to find the space and place to serve, understanding the woundedness, understanding the hurt and the pain in my community, in my home, in myself, trying to heal, right? And so what I've seen across this land is that the transcripted way in which the nonprofit industrial complex would have me to make money and have money and at the same time be able to heal doesn't work.
And why doesn't it work? What's wrong with the complex?
There are barriers and substances that have us to move in a place that doesn't have me free. And my healing requires that self-determination is a process in which it has to be.
Gotcha.
I have to be free in order to heal. I have to be self-determined in order to heal. I have to be able to see beyond the paycheck, to see beyond the way I have to eat, to see beyond the way I have to feed my children, to see beyond the way I love. It has to be beyond in order for me to heal. And so my own healing and me partnering with other sisters, brothers, and they, and he, and she, and whomever has to go beyond this construct, right? That says that it has to be here, that I have to be given to in order to heal, right?
And how do we go about changing that? How have you been able to work within that space towards your goal? Even despite despite the problems that are there, how do you complete your mission? And for those who don't know, it's April, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So in a second, I would like to hear from you just what DCRCC is doing. But just talking about the nonprofit industry complex, if I got the name wrong, please correct. But I understand where you're getting at. How do you, as a woman on a mission, work toward that goal of self-determination, even given the circumstances? You can kind of liken it to just the system right now in the United States. There are a lot of barriers, but people, they really try to affect change, and you need money, and the people who have money, they're not going to change stuff. So how do you do that, despite the lack of resources or the need to feed yourself and your family?
Well, you got to understand what the box is, right?
Right.
You can't play games with yourself and understanding about what you walk into and what it is, right? And so I understand that DCRCC and this bounty and the notion around being a journey person and providing space and place for people to heal, right? In that box, that's who I am, right? But that doesn't firmly describe who Sherelle Hessell-Gordon is, right? And so I step into it knowing. But a lot of times we go in the place, in the space, not knowing, right? right? And that's what the self-determination is, right? We have to know what we're doing, what transcribes who we are, what it is, our choice around what we identify as to who it is and what it is and what's happening, and make the conscious consent to know, I agree, and I'm stepping into this knowing. And because I am knowing, I can move forward. And so for me, as it regards to DCRCC, I am knowing. I know that this is a container in a box in which I provide a service to survivors in their healing journey. That I know I coordinate, right, other organizations to be able to provide a space for survivors. I know that box.
Definitely.
I can't be dismayed around what the box is, how the construct is, who the funding comes from, what does that look like, how am I supposed to be? I cannot be dismayed, right? But understanding that, I understand that I have to partner with other sisters and brothers and others who are free beyond the construct to be able to build around what freedom is, what healing is, what journey is.
Wow, Miss Hessell-Gordon is preaching to us right now, and she has that cadence too. She has that, like, she's talking like Malcolm right now, you know, kind of like, and like I just, you know.
How about that?
If we can for a second, let's shift gears. Let's talk about Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I think the people are curious to know exactly what DCRCC is doing this month. I think some events have passed and some are coming up. If you can just go into a little detail about that for us, please.
So the reality is that as healers, because we have known to be for a long time that we are healers innately, that we never think about ourselves. Lord knows we never think about ourselves. So DCRCC is providing a place for us as healers to think, to space to grow, to engage, right? Right? We're providing space for outreach. So while others are planning to be at metro spots and points of communication and transportation, we want to be where you are. So if you're in Anacostia, so if you're at Gallery Place, wherever you are, we want you to know that we are here, equipped, informed, engaged to do the work, to partner with you so that you can be safe, so that you can access healing, growth, self-determination, right? Right? And then we want to create a platform where you can talk about your struggle. A lot of times in the media and those that are happening within the context of our lives that we see, we don't hear our voice. We don't hear our voice, right? Whether it's us or them, understanding that we are connected, and the monstrosities and violence that happen within our homes, within our communities, within our lives, within our children, affect us. Irregardless of if we connected, if I have the last name of you, if I'm running to as I'm being shot in the back, it is still me. I tremble that my womb can manifest a man-child because I'm not equipped to what I have to tell him in order to survive. Even though I have a brother who is partnered with me. God, thank you. Inshallah.
Definitely. Let's talk about power and consent. And I know that this is a term, a phrase that goes out quite a lot. If you can explain for us what power and consent is, for just a little bit for those in the audience who don't know. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that speaks more to DCRC's mission pretty much, and it's pretty much the foundation of what DCRCC does. So if you can, please.
Yeah, so consent. free choice, right? And so there are constantly things that are happening to us that we don't even consent to, that we pray about, that we feel in our bodies, in our minds, right? That happen to us that we don't consent to, right? For me, that's called the big R, right? The big R. Right now, DCRCC works to eradicate the R, which is rape. But anytime that you don't give consent to ways in which you give up in regards to my body, my mind, my spirit, you take from me. Sherelle Hessell-Gordon experienced that as rape. You are taking from me. You are taking from me. And so, if I understand that, and then the complex nature is what's institutional, right? Macro, in which things happen day to day in our community, that has us to believe that you are taking without my consent. And the effect of that is that I have the same response, I have the same notion. Right?
So, if you can, because you did a really, our conversations really get, deep, and they take me to a new level, because you always find a way to connect just rape culture and sexual assault to the greater issues at hand. If you could just break down for us, just talking about consent, and you talked about consent just beyond rape. In what other ways do we relinquish our consent in our lives? If you can't just go into detail for us.
Yeah. So how we are enculturated to us consent is that you go and you have a doctor's appointment, right? And you go in, right? And they say, sign the form here, and this gives you consent, and it's perpetual, and and you sign. Not because you really understand what is happening, but because you have the desire to be healthy. And so you sign. And that's really how we are acculturated to consent. Because there is a need in regards to our bodies. And it's interesting because it all happens within our bodies. Right. Not even coming upon having a conversation around post-traumatic slave syndrome. But just the fact within itself is that we are acculturated within our bodies around consent. But how many of us understand what it means, perpetually or not, that we are saying yes to whatever, right? And so for me, for DCRCC, for all of the ways in which we are empowering, how do you gain autonomy around, when I'm saying yes, I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes right now to this interview.
That's true.
I'm saying yes right now to these cameras. I'm saying yes right now to these rooms. I'm saying yes right now into the place in which I am right now to be able to respond to you.
Definitely.
And at any point in time, that's not perpetual. That at any point in time, as a beautiful black queen, I'm saying no or yes. And that there is a space and a place for me to be able to do that. And it doesn't take away from you. And it doesn't take away from them to be able to do that.
All very great points. And let's give Ms. Hessell-Gordon another hand. And I hate reiterating myself, but you always have a way of really connecting the micro with the macro. So, speaking as someone who works in independent media, I can think of times working at certain internships. I've had older black mentors that advise me about ways to pitch black stories, or they tell me well, you know, it's Black History Month. You might not want to pitch that because it'll be too black or something like that. And, you know, speaking to your point about just not really having consent, but working with what you got to try to get a little bit of what you want, pretty much. You know?
Yeah.
So, my question to you, and this is the $1 million question, and, you know, this speaks to just everything that we talked about, especially as far as DCRC is concerned, you know. For those who are survivors, for those who have had their consent taken away from them physically and mentally, how do we start the healing process and help them make their own decisions, break down the barriers, and enter the matrix so that they understand that they don't have these set choices, that they can make choices beyond whatever else they see?
Freedom is the best gift that you can give anybody. Self-determination.
Wow. My goodness, she has quotables
right?
tonight, y'all.
No, I'm saying self-determination, y'all. Freedom. Healing is not transcribed. It is not transcribed. It is the notion that says that I have the room and the space to walk and breathe and live and birth. And the reality is that I don't have the space in America to do that. But what I do have the space to do is be in pain, to think consciously about whether I should give birth or not. Because I don't know if my children would be safe.
Wow,
so I need the space to breathe. I need the space to breathe. I need the space to birth. I need the space to heal. The reality is that we know how to bleed. We know how to breathe. We know how to live. We know how to nurture. Even you. We can take care of that. But if we don't have the space in the room to do that, we are stifled. And right now we're coughing up blood because our children are dying in the streets.
Are they well?
They're dying in the streets. And there's so much ways in which I can morph. I can straighten my hair. I can curl my hair. I can put boots on, whatever.
Right.
I can do that. But if we are not safe to be able to consciously grow our children.
Wow.
What am I supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do? You know, I've always been of the school of thought that it takes a village to help the children, and a good friend of mine told me one time, you know, stop asking people how they're doing. Ask them, are the children well? And you know, and that, you know, a very wise person, as a matter of fact, they said that question tells you everything that you need to know about the state of the world. You know, Ms. Hessell-Gordon, and once again, I have to thank you for coming on this show. We have an audience full of young, willing, concerned, energetic young people who I think some of whom make perfect candidates for volunteer positions at DCRCC if you have
and around the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So please, please to wrap up the interview and to end on a very good promotional, reflective note, how can people get down with the DCRCC movement?
Beyond the DCRCC movement, y'all need to be informed. You have to have a conscious effort in regards to what is going on in your life and how it's impacting you. But you have to have literacy around what it is, right? To be able to share with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your partners, right? And then get equipped. How are you challenging, understanding what it is that is happening to you on a daily basis? You can't lie dead, because the revolution is going to happen with or without you, and there's no revolution that is happening without young people, ever. And you are young, you are vibrant, you are free. Claim your freedom. Claim your freedom, and get equipped. And if you don't get it right, try again. And if you don't get it right, try again. And if you don't get it right, try again. And if you don't get it right, try again. Try again. We are living and breathing for you. For you. Try again.
Oh, man.
Try again.
Beautiful. Sherelle Hessell-Gordon of DCRCC. She's the executive director. Let's all give her a round of applause. Finger snaps, the whole nine. I think this interview was very special in the fact that at the last interview of the night, you really helped bring the message home to my contemporaries, the millennials, you know, how it's, at this time in history, it's all hands on deck now, you know. Find out what you want to do, find out what you're good at, make money with it, of course, but find some way to use that to help other people. And I want to thank you for your 17 years of service. Salute to you, Sherelle Hessell-Gordon. It's all love. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.